Blue Wave confirmed. J-Pork's podcast. Exclusively on East Coast Radio. Mile journey begins with one step. Progressives took that step on November 6th. The journey's not over, but we took a step in the right direction.
If you don't know what Staten Island is, it's like New York's abortion that lived.
Did you see New York 11 elected a Democrat? New York 11 is Staten Island, the most Trumpian place in New York City. Elected a Democrat. Don't try to tell me it wasn't a wave. Robert Mueller isn't the only person investigating Trump now. We have the House Intel Committee is now chaired by Adam Schiff, and they have subpoena power. And he will use it. And he will get to the bottom of this, like he's been trying to do for the last 2 years, and Devin Nunes has been stymieing him. Devin Nunes is no longer the chairman. The midnight runs to the White House are over. I made a promise to the listeners of East Coast Radio that if the Democrats did not mess up November, that if November 6th went our way, that we would have a little fun here on East Coast Radio. And if you stay tuned, I promise you this. Along with our fighting fascism and trying to save democracy, we will have a little fun. Because we earned it. Keep it locked to East Coast Radio. Remember, we got Dies in Your House at the end of the week. We got the J-Pork's podcast at the beginning of the week. Every week, East Coast Radio for the least heard voices. Get us on Patreon, patreon.com/J-Porks, and follow us on Twitter at East Coast Radio. Let's punch fascism in the face. One podcast at a time.
If you don't know what Staten Island is, it's like New York's abortion that lived. Representing Staten Island. Staten Island wasn't no joke.
Hey, yo! What is the word, peeps? Welcome back into another action-packed edition of the J-Porks Podcast. I am J-Porks. With me, as always, on the other side of the glass, making sure this is a well-oiled podcast machine, learning to lower the volume on the music slowly every week is the ever-popular Nobody. Getting better at that. Getting better on that, not just cutting out on the intro there. That is, on the intro, the Meat Puppets with Enchanted Pork Fist. Because I'm Jay Porks, and I work for the Meat Puppets. So 1 + 1 is 2 there. And I'm going to use their songs because every other time I use a song, I get taken off YouTube, and I can't afford to get taken off YouTube. What is up, folks? Last week, for the first time in 104 weeks, I did not bring you a brand new episode of the J-Porks Podcast. There was no need to. I felt that you didn't need more reason to vote. We just needed to vote. And we voted. And we took it back. We flipped the House. There are still races not being done being counted. We have Senate races that are still being counted. Florida continues to Florida. We'll get into that in 1 second. We had the Keebler elf removed from the tree. And we are going to spend about 45 minutes talking about that in a little while. But if you stick around for all of that, if you stick around for this, and then a lot about Jeff Sessions and Matt Whitaker, and Matt Whitaker's illegal appointment to AG, if you stick around for all that, we're going to talk some music at the tail end. Hashtag promises. And I am not a liar. I don't know why my girlfriend laughs whenever I say that. I'm not a liar. I do not lie. Okay, we flipped the house. We as in Democrats. We as in progressives. I had this last episode of Dies in Your House, which dropped on Friday, which you should go check out right now at Least Coast Radio, if you just follow along on Twitter at Least Coast Radio. Or if you go on iTunes, search for Least Coast Radio, or on YouTube, search for Least Coast Radio. You can find it. It's about a 25-minute episode of Dies in Your House. Little election reactions there. We're not gonna, spend 20 minutes having elections reactions because, I want you to go listen to that. It's, I recorded it for a reason. So, I just want to quickly touch on some things. Jonathan Capehart had a piece, and Washington Post, I believe. I see Jonathan Capehart on Joy Reid all the time. He had a piece about Nancy Pelosi saying this is no time for the guessing game. Nancy Pelosi should remain speaker. I agree. Jonathan Capehart's a smart guy. So I read it, and I agree with his argument there. This is no time to have, a brand new Speaker of the House, Master of the Odd type thing. That being said, guys, 104 weeks. That's how long we spent, nose to the grind, making sure we get that vote out. Largest midterm turnout since 1966. Largest young person voter turnout ever. Ever. We spent 104 weeks building that. We are not even 7 days out. Let's just breathe, have some banana bread, binge a show on Netflix for a couple of days, and, maybe next week we can start talking about the pros and cons about Nancy Pelosi being the Speaker of the House. Remember, Nancy Pelosi is the last boogeyman of the Republican Party. They don't have Hillary Clinton. They don't have, Ocasio-Cortez is not campaigning, so you're not going to hear about socialism. Which, by the way, can I just say that Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez not being able to afford an apartment in Washington, D.C. yet because she hasn't started her job as congressperson is just so real. You know what I'm saying? There is nothing more real than that. Oh, you don't have an apartment in D.C.? No, why? Because I can't afford one. So she'll be taking the train from Queens to Washington, D.C. as she needs to until she finds herself an apartment in D.C. So I read that. I thought that was hilarious. But not hilarious. It's not hilarious that she doesn't, it's real. It's real life. But she's not on the campaign trail, so you can't talk about socialism. You know what I'm saying? Oh, socialism, even though she's not a socialist and stuff like that. But, you can't. Nancy Pelosi's the last boogeyman of the Republican Party. And if you get rid of Pelosi, then what grandma do they have to point to after that? You know what I'm saying? There is a reason why there is no wall built. There is a reason why we still have democracy. There's a reason why we took back the House. And there's a reason why Democrats raised a lot more money than Republicans did this time around. And yes, it was also because the Russia couldn't siphon money through the NRA to Trump directly. I understand that. But at the same time, we did the damn thing. We did the damn thing on Tuesday. And let's just breathe. And let's breathe. And yes, I think that the Democratic representatives, they shouldn't be resigned to the notion of, oh, we're automatically going to make Nancy Pelosi the Speaker of the House. They should do their Democratic duties and vote and discuss and stuff like that. I have a feeling that after they have a discussion with Nancy Pelosi, that they'll all come around. Because they like being elected. And that's just how that goes. But I mean, Wednesday morning, and as the night went on Tuesday, again, this is not election reactions, but and Lawrence O'Donnell said this earlier in the week. He said it, I believe, Monday night or the Friday before Election Day. He said, if New York 11 flips, we're looking at a wave. And until New York 11 flipped, because they had the districts, they had the 25 districts that Clinton won, that Clinton won strongly, that were in Republican control. And those races weren't coming in so fast. But once New York 11, my district, once New York 11 turned, once I saw that little NY 11 lit up in blue, I said, oh, no way, this is a wave. Now, at the end of the night, there was only, I think, a 27-seat pickup. They're still counting votes. By the time they're done counting votes, they're going to be close to 40. Maybe 35. It's going to be over 30. 538 had the Democrats at a 58-seat pickup. At like the maximum. All the pundits on Wednesday morning, well, too bad it wasn't a wave. What about the state house races? 300 legislative seats changed from Republican to Democrat. We took governorships, which is extremely important when it comes to things like elections, like election integrity, like how they're trying to hide votes for Stacey Abrams in Georgia. How they're trying to stop Broward County's votes in Florida. Something very weird going on in Florida, but then again, when have we not said that there is something really weird going on in Florida? Scene of the crime since 2000. Continues to be. We have Kyrsten Sinema. We have an Arizona Senate race. Kyrsten Sinema has taken a lead. I know it's a week after the election or 5 days after the election. Kyrsten Sinema has taken a lead, the Democrat in Arizona, because they're still counting ballots from counties. Some of these places count slow. There's a lot of House races in California that have not been called yet. But if Kyrsten Sinema holds on, we will have a second Kyrsten in the Senate. We'll have two Kyrstens. Obviously, more importantly, we will have another Democrat. And, the Republicans picked up, what, two Senate seats? Let's breathe. Let's breathe for a second. Come on. They got Heidkamp and McCaskill. And, a third of the Senate is up every 2 years, so they just got lucky enough that they weren't defending as much territory as us. And if you look at the Republican Party hitching their wagon to Trump, don't worry. The Republican Party we will rid America of this Republican Party. Now, if some Republican Party light, if some old school Republicans want to come out and be real conservatives, and form some new party, cool. But these Republicans who decided to not stand up to Trump, these Republicans are done. And America sees it. And there's only so many old white men that can vote for you. Voter turnout among young people, highest ever. The only thing I feel bad, here's what I feel bad for. And I'll keep it real. I'll keep it real and as serious as a heart attack. Name the organization that probably was the most responsible for registering young voters to vote in this election cycle for the 2018 election. What group? What group of people? Well, do you remember the March for Our Lives? The Saturday they went out there and they marched on Washington. Do you remember that? And what did they do? They turned their tragedy, they turned watching their friends die into a all-out campaign. They went state to state, registered young people to vote, lobbied, congressmen and congresswomen and people and donors. They lobbied for people to pay attention to who's taking money from the NRA. What television hosts are taking money from what television hosts? Who's advertising on what shows that support the NRA? They made that their mission. David Hogg, Emma Gonzalez, my bud John Papanier, who lived on Staten Island. They made that their mission. March for Our Lives became Vote for Our Lives. That started in Parkland. I know that it became a nationwide effort, but that started in Parkland, Florida. And they were responsible for some of the highest youth voter turnout of all time. And look what happened in Florida. Gillum lost. Nelson lost. They might be going to runoffs. They might be not runoffs. They might be going to recounts, but never trust the Florida recount. Jeb Bush is still there after all. Is he? No, Jeb Bush isn't there. If Jeb Bush shows up in the building where the recount is happening, everybody take your phones out and scream World Star. So, I mean, these kids, I feel bad for them. Because they did all this. They did all of this to get their to get kids' voter turnout up, in their own state couldn't even do it right. And you know what? 8 million people voted in the midterms in Florida. That's a lot of votes. That's a lot of votes. So Democrats need to get to work on Florida. And we need to decide, is Florida is it blue? Is it red? They need to decide. Can't flip every election cycle. That makes it very hard to win an archaic electoral college. Democratic candidates got like 6 million more votes than Republican candidates on Tuesday night. Popular vote on our side. There's more of us than them. And I think that if progressives keep going out and voting people into office that they care about, voting people into office that care about the stuff that they are concerned with. You can go back and listen to my podcasts. There's no way I thought Max Rose had a chance to win. He won. Time to get to work. You can make it happen in your town too. Nothing is over. And keeping it local really fast. Mayor de Blasio, New York City, they're finally going to open up some safe injection sites for people who are addicted to heroin to do heroin and not die. And I think that's a good thing. And I just want to go out and I just want to, come out and say that. I had a couple of weeks ago, I'll link you up. I had a whole podcast about safe injection sites. They're a thing that's needed. They're a thing that's been needed for a while. And if you don't want your son or daughter to go into the bathroom with Perkins and discover somebody dead from a heroin overdose, then you want things like safe injection sites. I know if you're an idiot, you read the headline, safe injection sites, and you say, oh, they're going to let people do heroin? Well, they're not going to let people do heroin. People are doing heroin. So, I mean, we can let them die and spread disease, or we can try to help them, or at least quarantine the problem by keeping the people that do heroin, not spreading heroin to other people. Not spreading disease to other people that they may have contracted from sharing needles and doing heroin with other junkies. Safe injection sites, needles, nurses. Off the streets. Win, win, win. That's drug addicts that's drug addicts not doing drugs in your park where your children are. That's a job for nurses. And that's people not dying. Win, win, win. All right. That's the blue wave. The blue wave happened. Now you're going to see pundits now keep this. Remember, guys, we had 2 years of all the people, all the pundits that left the Republican Party, all the political operatives that left the Republican Party because they couldn't take the Trump stuff and the Republicans hitching their wagon to Trump. Wednesday morning, all of those people stopped sounding like liberals and started sounding like Republicans again. So you have to reevaluate what you're watching. Reevaluate the morning shows, reevaluate the cable news. And, really the only cable news show you need to watch is Maddow. But Melber at 6 is also good. And you can watch Deadline White House at 4. Those are the 3 you really need. Everything else is just background noise. I mean, yeah, I watch Morning Joe when I'm having my coffee, but they shut down Sam Stein asking a question about pot to the new governor of Michigan. I don't know if it was governor or representative, somebody from Michigan who just won, asking about pot. And they're like, oh, well, enough pot questions. I'm sorry, Mr. Joe Scarborough, Mr. Rock Band, Mr. Welcome to the Monkey House, putting out albums. I'm sorry that you think that pot's not important. But let me tell you something. All you tweeted about for 6 months was telling people to vote. You want young people to care about elections? You put pot on the ballot. And how you do that is simple. Before we start talking about 2020, before we start talking about is it going to be Elizabeth Warren? Is it going to be Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden? Before we figure out what old white person is going to represent the diverse Democratic Party, which I feel is a mistake, before we decide that, we need to listen to which progressive candidate who wants to be president in 2020, what we have to listen for is to which one of them comes out and says unequivocally, in plain English, marijuana federally legal for recreational purposes by adults if I'm elected. Full stop. Full stop. No more dancing around this. That's over. Okay. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Patreon. Then we're going to talk about Jeff Sessions and Matt Whitaker and the Constitution when we come back after this. Hey yo, J Porks here, back to record my own commercials. And here's the deal. You may have heard me complaining on today's podcast or a previous podcast about suffering through a summer of unemployment. Well, we have a fix for that, and it is called Patreon. That's right. Least Coast Radio now has a Patreon page, and all you need to do is go to patreon.com/jporks, and there are 3 tiers that you can subscribe to, 3 tiers you can join to become a member of Least Coast Radio, of the Least Coast Radio community, of Porks Nation. You'll even have a chance to pick the name and all that stuff. And we are not offering just thank yous and shout outs. We got bonus content. There is even a tier where you are able to talk to me on the phone every week. And we will go over what is happening in our country. And you could personally talk to me, J Pork. Personal interactions. There's a tier where there's a group. You can join a group, and you could affect where the podcast goes that week. I need a community. I need help. Not necessarily money, but I need people to be helping me out. So therefore, that's why I created a Least Coast Radio Patreon. Not to be confused with a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter. This is not me with my handout. I have bonus content. Bonus content to offer you. I have tons of it. I have tons of time, and I want to give it to you. All you need to do is join us on Patreon. Become a Patreon. Patreon.com/jporks. Look for the Least Coast Radio Patreon page. You'll see me. You'll see me with a microphone and dies in your house next to the name. You'll see that. So just go hit us on Patreon. You will get a thank you. I will know that, and you will have a lot to do with what goes down on the J Porks podcast and everything concerned with Least Coast Radio. It's going to be a big year for us. 2018. Let's get it done. And we're back here. You noticed on Friday it was Thursday, I'm sorry. It was Thursday. Did you notice on Thursday there was a bunch of mass protests across the country? At least one in every 50 states. Well, that's because this orange wannabe despot cunt monkey clown decided to fire Jeff Sessions. Now, sidebar really fast. Yes, Democrats were very unhappy with the appointment of Jeff Sessions. Yes, Democrats would have loved if Jeff Sessions would have not been confirmed. Yes, Democrats in the long run who care about like voting rights and immigration, yeah, it's kind of a good thing that Jeff Sessions is no longer the Attorney General of the United States. But, A, it's undermining the rule of law to fire him at this time. And I don't care, it said resignation. It's not a resignation. He fired him. It's obstruction of justice. But let me sidebar on something that there's a couple of us listening care about. Okay. Remember this is for the people like me who think that the legalization of recreational marijuana for adult use is an important thing. Is not only an important thing to get voters to the polls, but it's an important thing to help with an opioid crisis, and it's an important thing to generate taxes from and regulate from. And it's a good way to get criminals from not being criminals anymore. Like to stop having people buy plants from criminals, and those criminals also have access to the black market where they can get all sorts of pills and stuff like that. So if you take this plant that everybody smokes and you take it off the black market and you give the government, the ability to tax and regulate that could help us out of a lot of financial holes. Okay. Jeff Sessions' appointment to Attorney General was like the death nail to everybody. The good people don't smoke marijuana. But, again, Jeff Sessions is so concerned with taking away the voting rights of black people and, kidnapping immigrant kids at the border that he didn't really move on pot. He didn't make any moves. He was ineffective. So in that, it was good to have him on because he is the attorney general who had to recuse from the Russia investigation. Therefore, Rosenstein was overseeing the Mueller Russia probe. And Rosenstein is, sort of, kind of an American, kind of a patriot. And Jeff Sessions is a Keebler elf who was the first senator to endorse Trump. And 2 years ago, remember? About 2.5 years ago, Jeff Sessions endorsed Trump. He left the Senate to become the attorney general. His Senate seat was won by a Democrat. And now Jeff Sessions is fired. You guys got no net gain out of that. But a problem for us weed-smoking progressives is this. Chris Christie was at the White House yesterday. Here's the thing about Chris Christie. He cares more about, he's on the same level of pot hatred with Jeff Sessions, but he cares more about stopping people from smoking pot than stopping black people from voting. And that's a problem for people that smoke pot. So, remember, Chris Christie, governor of New Jersey could have had recreational marijuana through legislation years ago. He stood up proudly and claimed that he was the only thing standing in the way of this blood money. America's already got an addictive personality. Yeah, I can tell by the amount of hot dogs you shove down your throat at baseball games. We closing the beach again? How's the bridge traffic? Clown. The only thing keeping, he's going to have to patch things up with Jared Kushner, because he locked up his dad and all. So, we're on AG watch here, okay? Who's it going to be? Who can get confirmed? They gained a couple of seats in the Senate. The Republicans did, so it would be an easier confirmation process, but who can get confirmed? And I don't think and they're not going to do that until January. But until January, there is an acting attorney general, and this is the main thing here. There is an acting attorney general, Matt Whitaker. Now, you may ask who Matt Whitaker is. Well, he's been a pundit before. He was on CNN. I saw him wrote an article for CNN claiming that the Mueller probe was going too far. And when they asked him on CNN, first of all, he's made several comments that he thinks that there is no proof of Russia and Trump, even though there's many indictments and, his campaign manager pleaded guilty and is now working with the Mueller investigation. But, okay, he claims that there's no evidence. Goes on CNN and says he wouldn't fire Mueller. He would just advise Trump to, use a recess appointment, which is what this is now between Congresses. We have a newly elected Congress that is not taking over until January. This is what a recess is. You use a recess appointment to put over an acting attorney general who would then just defund the Mueller probe, just not give him any money and deny all subpoena requests. Now, first on the money, Jeff Sessions' big thing was also civil asset forfeiture. And because he pushed to reinstate that so hard, so fast, the government was able to civil asset forfeit all of Paul Manafort's things. Ostrich coats, outdoor kitchens. So basically, Paul Manafort's lavish lifestyle is paying for the Mueller investigation. It's not a government-funded thing, so... It's not, taxpayers are not paying Robert Mueller. He's independent. So let's just put that aside for a second. Also, not a constitutionalist here, but it's illegal. Hear me out. You replaced somebody with a job of, like the Attorney General, answers to the President and needs to be confirmed by the Senate on an advise and consent thing. You can't put somebody over the deputy who's not confirmed by the Senate. Until this person, or until whoever is going to be the Attorney General is confirmed, Rod Rosenstein is the Attorney General. He is the deputy. Now, unless you name a new deputy, there's an order at the Justice Department. Rosenstein is next. He's after Sessions. You can't take somebody, especially at random, and just, like, if you want to shuffle, or if you want to say Rod Rosenstein's getting demoted to 4th, or something like that, and make a new deputy attorney general, and see, I believe that he could do that. But you can't just take a rando and place him as acting attorney general, who's now in charge of the Mueller probe. That's not a thing. That's not a thing that's legal, according to the Constitution. So, the guy, Matt Whitaker, is, for all intents and purposes, a fake attorney general. He's not even really the attorney general. Do not listen to anything he says. From here on out, from here till January, whenever they confirm a new attorney general, Matt Whitaker, whatever he says, means nothing. He is not real. You can't just appoint people. That's not how this works. And also taking the oversight away from Rod Rosenstein. Now, it might be nothing, but Rod Rosenstein was at Capitol Hill or something with his lawyer yesterday. What was that? Was Rosenstein saying, you can't take this oversight out of my hands? Or was it nothing? I mean, he's a lawman. He meets with lawyers. Who knows? So the protests, Protect Mueller protests, which went out in all 50 states, there was about 20,000 people in Times Square. Look how fast people can mobilize. A lot of those signs were Whitaker must recuse. I mean, we've all been watching the same show, right? If he was going to recuse, he wouldn't have been put in that position. In the fake position that he illegally has. In the position he doesn't actually have because he's not allowed to have it according to the Constitution. A Whitaker recusal is not going to be a thing. But, for more insight on this, I say we get to everybody's favorite segment of the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Jay Porks presents The Thread Count. And that's right, we're here. We in here. And we got a thread from Asha Rangappa. She is a former FBI agent. She is a CNN analyst. And she was one of the brave journalists who appeared in one of the brave contributors that appeared in the Active Measures documentary, which you should definitely check out. So, she knows her stuff. She's been featured on the Thread Count before. And you should go follow her at Asha Rangappa. Okay. So somebody wrote her a tweet and said, Asha, big fan, could you tell us why we shouldn't panic? Would be great to have your insight. Signed, Panicked Law Students. So she said, step down from the ledge for now. Thread. Okay, here are my thoughts on Whitaker taking over the Mueller investigation and why I think we need to see how things unfold before losing it. To be clear, I do not think this is an ideal situation, but... And here we go. Next tweet. First, Whitaker has spoken and written publicly on the Mueller investigation. This clearly creates an appearance of a conflict of interest. He must consult with the ethics people as his former boss did and, if it is warranted, recuse. Period. But, assuming he does not, first, as a commentator pundit, you're expected to have an opinion on a given issue. But as discussed in the context of Peter Strzok et al., keep in mind that there is a very strong culture in the Department of Justice to not let these views infect decisions. As a former USA, Whitaker knows this culture. Further, he has documented these decisions. The standard in the special counsel regulations for denying a request or recommendation of the special counsel is that it is, quote, so inappropriate or unwarranted under establishment departmental practices, that it should not be pursued. Whitaker would have to document and justify his decisions under this standard, knowing, especially with Dems in control of the House, that he would have to testify to them under oath. Flimsy or corrupt justifications would open him up to obstruction of justice. Even if he wanted to starve the investigation, the special counsel regulations state that the budget for the coming year must be approved within 90 days of the fiscal year. The fiscal year already started October 1, and so the budget is in place until September 19. The next approval is June 19. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Another objection he made publicly is that going into Trump's finances would be crossing a red line. Remember that Mueller farmed out the Cohen case to the Southern District of New York. That is likely the thread that leads to the Trump Organization, and it is not under Mueller, so that should not be an issue. No red line. Important to keep in mind that his comments were made when he, like the rest of us, only knew what the public... Hold on. Important to keep in mind that his comments were made when, like the rest of us, only knew what was public, which, in summer of 17, wasn't much. Since then, we've had indictments and guilty pleas of Manafort, Gates, Flynn, Papadopoulos, Cohen, and a bunch of Russians. The amount of evidence that has been accumulated in an investigation of this scale cannot be overstated. Which brings it back to how hard it will be for him to justify blocking further steps under the standard outlined in number 4, above, not happening. So basically, what she's saying is he can't starve the investigation. He can't come up with good enough reasons to not serve Mueller's subpoenas or requests. Also, at a personal level, until now, his loyalty as chief of staff has been to Sessions, someone he saw get berated, insulted, pressured, and humiliated by POTUS. He may have seen more cray behind the scenes. I wouldn't count on his loyalty suddenly switching to POTUS. Which brings me to, what would be the payoff? He's not going to be the Attorney General. This is temporary. If he has political ambitions, he is much better off with Sessions as an ally and being respected in the Department of Justice than hitching his wagon to Trump's falling star. In short, the rules, culture, and incentives all point to just keeping what's happening on track, not going off a cliff, which would be professional suicide. I may be proven wrong. In the end, I hope I'm not. Again, Asha Rangappa, follow her on Twitter. There's actually an underscore after her name, so make sure you get that. So basically, what Homegirl is saying here is, you know, she's been an FBI agent before. There's a lot he can't do. What's the payoff? What's the payoff for this dude? He was Sessions' chief of staff. I forgot to mention that in my little preamble. He was Sessions' chief of staff who Trump was talking to about firing Sessions. Hitching loyalty, and we spoke about this before, and we'll speak about it after, and we're going to be speaking about it probably for the next 104 weeks. Hitching your wagon to Trump is not going, as the Republican Party fades away, you will find out that the reason that they faded was because too many people decided to hitch their wagons to Trump and not America. The Department of Justice, we have career officials at the Department of Justice. Okay? We have people that have taken an oath to serve the law, uphold the law. There's no deep state. There's no FBI. Just like there's no FBI agents conspiring against Trump, there shouldn't be any FBI agents conspiring against Mueller. So, the guy heading the Department of Justice, an illegal appointment, if he was to, let's say, try to do something shifty, well, then he's going to meet. If you want to get shifty, you're going to have a talk with a guy I like to call Shifty, Mr. Adam Schiff, who takes over chairmanship of the House Intel Committee in January. And Adam Schiff, wants answers. And I've seen Adam Schiff on TV for the previous 104 weeks. We want answers. Never hostile. Always using his indoor voice. Very calm. As if to say, chill. We're going to get to the bottom of this. And again, I said it on Dies in Your House. This might be my mid-90s progressive talking, but I feel more confident in our institutions now that Democrats have control of at least one portion of government, a lot of governorships, and a lot of state houses. Flipped 300 legislative state house seats. And you're going to see how big that is in the coming years. In the coming years, that is going to show to be large. So yeah, listen, Republicans may have picked up a couple of extra Senate seats this election. But the blue wave happened, and the blue wave is washing over this country. Oh, it wasn't a wave. Yes, it was. So, be on Mueller watch. Again, you can do the hashtag protect Mueller, and check out when, if they're doing more protests, we'll get in on that. Go to Trumpisn'tAboveTheLaw.com. Or just Google Trump is not above the law. I'm not sure if it's .com, .org, .net. It'll take you to the website where you can find the protest that's closest to you. Most important thing is when you get out there and protest, it's wintertime, so stay warm. But also, don't do anything stupid. Like, don't break the law. We march, we chant, but we're civil about it because this is what democracy is. If we don't like what's going on, we have a right to raise our voice. As long as we don't do it in a violent way and as long as nobody gets threatened. Also, if you guys really want to get your local corrupt official out of office, look for the Indivisible group. Look for them on social media. Find out where they are. They have them in all the state. They have them in all states. They held retirement parties. Maddow was covering this earlier this week. Indivisible. Look them up. They are a group that we need to get behind. And we here at East Coast Radio are most certainly behind everything the Indivisible folks are doing. And if they want to send me an address, I'll send them, the $1.50 I have extra in my room. I'll send them some money. I'll donate. I'll help them out. And if they got something going on around here, I will join in with that. Problem is that Staten Island just elected a Democrat. I'm still not used to saying that. Okay. So what else be happening here in the Twitterverse? And you know what? Let's keep it on Sessions, because this is a huge story. This is big. This is the guy overseeing the Russia investigation into what could possibly be the end of this rise of the fascist regime. And we have an acting attorney general during a recess appointment that it was placed there illegally. I gave you my thoughts. I gave you Ash's thoughts. Now we'll go to another threader on Twitter. That's Seth Abramson. He is the author of a book called Proof of Collusion. And he does analysis for CNN and BBC at times. Anyhow, there is a thread about Whitaker. Matt Whitaker, and let's just go through it. Let's look at it at a different angle. Let's look at it. We looked at it from the perspective from a former FBI agent. Now let's look at it in the perspective of a journalist covering a full-time journalist who's never worked for the FBI covering this. Then let's go. Thread. This is Seth Abramson. You can follow him on Twitter at, you guessed it, Seth Abramson. The Whitaker scandal is deepening, as it becomes clear that Sessions' Russia recusal was a coordinated sham and his firing an act of obstruction, and that his replacement is a White House plant inside the Mueller probe. I hope you'll retweet and read on for more details. 1. From 2014 to 2017, Whitaker worked for World Patent Marketing, which during his tenure defrauded customers out of $26 million and was successfully prosecuted by the federal government. His involvement in the scam confirmed he had loose morals and that the feds would never want to employ him again. Despite the seemingly impossibility of a man with Whitaker's background getting a job at Justice ever again, he'd been found to have used his former title as U.S. Attorney to fraudulently threaten consumers with valid complaints with criminal penalties. Whitaker found an opening. Within 60 days of parachuting out of World Patent Marketing, as it was being fined $26 million by the feds, Whitaker was working for CNN and telling a fellow attorney panelist that his purpose in working for CNN was to get noticed by one man, Donald Trump, and thereby a job. Whitaker spent his time at CNN making ludicrous statements about the Mueller probe. There was no obstruction or collusion, he said. Mueller had no authority to look into the aspects of Trump finances or subpoena him, he said. All the while, he hoped Trump was watching him. Trump was indeed watching him, and Whitaker helped him solve a problem. AG Jeff Sessions' Russia recusal. With Sessions recused, Trump was unable to get any intel about what was happening inside the probe, and he desperately wanted that intel. Rosenstein would not give it to him. So Matt Whitaker, who has no business ever being hired by the feds again, who'd proven himself to willingly violate the law, who'd taken positions on the Mueller probe expressly to please Trump as he watched Whitaker on TV, was quickly made Sessions' new chief of staff. What happened next was just what you'd expect. Whitaker began reporting privately to the White House, going there at least 12 times to meet Trump, per media reports, and during those trips discussing Mueller's probe. It's unthinkable that Sessions didn't know this was happening. Remember, Sessions has criminal liability in the Russia case. He met secretly with the Russians to negotiate sanctions and discussed the presidential campaign and perjured himself multiple times to Congress. Though recused, he has a vested interest in Trump getting off scot-free. While meetings between AG Sessions, who was receiving briefings from the head of the Mueller probe, Rod Rosenstein, and Trump would have drawn a lot of attention, Whitaker could meet with the president without nearly as much attention being brought to their clandestine liaisons. I use the phrase clandestine liaisons advisedly, not for the sake of empty drama. Trump's chief of staff, John Kelly, privately called Whitaker Trump's eyes and ears at Justice, and media reports confirm he was specifically prone to discuss the Mueller case with the Mueller probe with Trump. Let's hold on 1 second here. Any secret Whitaker-Trump discussion of the Mueller probe was inappropriate. Trump knew it, Sessions knew it, Kelly knew it, and Whitaker knew it. But Whitaker has been selected because his history showed he was willing to break the rules, and he was perpetually thankful for his job. Whitaker had therefore been far more helpful to Trump than the recused Sessions, and far more helpful than Rod Rosenstein, who refused to pass the intel to Trump about the Mueller probe that Mueller wanted. So as ballots were still being counted from the midterm elections, Trump fired Attorney General Jeff Sessions, refused to elevate Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein to Sessions' position, as his statutory Department of Justice order of succession required, and installed his spy Whitaker as AG. Then he lied to America about whether he'd ever met with Whitaker, saying he, quote, didn't know him. Meanwhile, over at DOJ, Whitaker was telling friends that he'd never recuse himself from overseeing the Mueller probe. This despite his public statements on the probe, which included a detailed plan for a then hypothetical AG disseminating the probe by starving it of funds. Moreover, because Sessions' firing, obscured by Trump, forcing Sessions to write a letter of resignation, then confirmed by Kelly ordering Sessions out of DOJ 3 days before Sessions wanted, was obstruction, and likely will be looked at by Robert Mueller. Whitaker's now a witness. The upshot? Legal scholars say Trump's installment of Whitaker as AG violated both the Constitution and the statute. Trump has lied repeatedly about his relationship with Whitaker. Republicans refuse to put Whitaker under oath about his intentions. Whitaker is a Mueller witness. Whitaker's statements on Mueller and his probe, coupled with him being a Mueller witness in a future obstruction case over Sessions' firing, adding to the fact that Whitaker was campaign manager for Trump's 2016 co-chair, wait for it, Sam Clovis, render him historically conflicted. On these facts, any investigator's theory of the case would be that Sessions, himself implicated in the Russia probe, allowed his chief of staff to be used by Trump as a recusal end-around, a spy, at justice, and that Whitaker was then rewarded with an illegal elevation to Attorney General. The Whitaker-Trump plot to destroy Mueller's probe is clear. Have AG Whitaker block indictments. He can. Foreclose new avenues of the Mueller investigation and starve Mueller of funds. And why did Trump move so fast to install him? Because reports say that Don Jr. is about to be indicted. The Whitaker scandal is as big as Watergate, even if it arises within a Trump-Russia plot 10 times more criminal than Nixon's. And America must wait 2 months to see Congress do anything about it. The damage Trump and Whitaker can do in that time is incalculable. Urgent action is being taken by Coons in the Senate and Nadler in the House, moving to pass a bill to protect Mueller ASAP. The new House plans to call Whitaker to testify. 1,000 protests happened nationwide on Thursday. 18 state AGs published a protest letter. But 2 months is still a long time. Note, none of the actions now being taken directly addresses the danger of Whitaker using his powers to destroy Mueller's probe without firing him. What's needed is a federal injunction, sought by Mueller or the new House, against Whitaker's installation as AG or his upcoming moves. Update. We now know 2 things. 1. Trump discussed events at DOJ with Whitaker, including Russia, 12 times. 2. In October, Trump discussed with Whitaker, hat tip to DM for link, whether he wanted to be the new AG. How much do you want to make a bet these events coincided? Update 2. If you're Mueller and you're investigating Sessions' firing as obstruction, the first witness you want to speak to is Matt Whitaker to find out what he discussed with or promised to Trump about the Russia probe before replacing the Attorney General. Whitaker must recuse himself. And yeah, he must, but he's there unconstitutionally. He's there illegally. He's not a real thing. And it is serious. And we do need to take this seriously. We did win the House, but that doesn't mean that all of our problems here are solved. That doesn't mean democracy is officially saved. Matt Whitaker running justice is a bad thing. He is only put there to stop Robert Mueller's investigation. Not flat out stop it, but bleed it of funds, deny him the right to indict people, which, by the way, listen, here's how this works, and I heard on Mad Out the other day they had one of Mueller's attorneys was in court arguing a case. Arguing the Andrew Miller subpoena. That's a whole nother story. One of Roger Stone's associates who paints houses now refused the subpoena. And they were like, why? You know, you're a nobody. Why would you refuse a subpoena? And they're like, well, the Mueller probe is illegal. What? You paint houses. You paint houses, dude. So Andrew Miller is fighting his subpoena, and one of the prosecutors in the Mueller, one of the investigators in the Mueller probe, was arguing the case in front of a federal judge. And he was saying that they don't do things like on their own. They have to go to what was then Rod Rosenstein, and they have to say, okay, we want to do this. And Rod Rosenstein has to approve it. And if Rod Rosenstein or whoever's running the probe doesn't approve it, they need to make that known. They can't just say, I don't want to. They need a clear reason, and a reason that they'd be willing to testify to. Which is why I'm a little more calm, because 2 months is a long time. 2 months is a very long time. But at the same time, if somebody was going to burn down a house, now, if you can't stop them from burning down the house, but you know you can investigate them in 2 months, there's no reason to go inside the burning house and get lit on fire. I'm really bad at analogies. Like, comically bad at analogies. So that was a terrible one. But the point is, Elijah Cummings, Adam Schiff, Jerry Nadler, Maxine Waters. These are people that are going to hold gavels once 2019 starts. And all these places, everyone better be preserving documents related to the Sessions firing, all of this. Even if you don't think that there is a Russia thing, which if you don't know that there's a Russia thing by now, if you think that there is nothing, if you think Trump and Russia is a nothing burger, you need to be on some serious antipsychotic medication. That's first. You're not allowed to walk around in life. If you can see all of this evidence, if you can see all of this stuff, all these indicted Russians, Paul Manafort, Mike Flynn, Don Jr., Trump Tower meeting, all that stuff, if you can see all of this and think that there's no Trump Russia, read all the books, if you think there's no Trump Russia, then I really don't know what to tell you. But let's pretend, for argument's sake, that there isn't a Trump Russia. Let's pretend that this is, not real. Then why stop an investigation? Oh, Jay, he didn't stop the investigation. He's allowed to fire who he wants. Yes. Yes, he is. But when you're firing people like Comey, like Sessions, when you're Stroke, what's the other one? I know the guy. When you're Comey's assistant, McCabe, not assistant, Comey's deputy, Andrew McCabe. When you're firing all these people because they're investigating you, that's called obstruction of justice. You know what else is called obstruction of justice? If an officer of the law asks you a question and you don't answer it, that's called obstruction of justice. So don't tell me that firing Comey is an obstruction of justice. Don't tell me that firing Sessions isn't. Don't tell me that McCabe and Stroke, don't tell me all of this stuff. Don't tell me all of the tweets aren't intimidation, witness intimidation, tampering. He's just telling it like it is, Jay. No, he's not. The furthest thing, Trump is the furthest thing from telling you, quote, how it is. That's literally something he has never done in his life. He tells you how he wants you to, what he wants you to believe it is. I'll remind you about the caravan that we haven't spoke about anymore. I'll remind you about the word mob being used about Democrats, not being used anymore. Sessions is fired in response to the blue wave, because he was just waiting to fire Sessions anyway, because Sessions can't oversee and keep the Russia probe in line, and therefore that firing is obstruction of justice. firing James Comey because he would not let the Michael Flynn investigation go, and because, quote, I fired him because of this Russia thing, and telling Sergei Kislyak that the Russia cloud is lifted. This is all obstruction of justice. The Southern District of New York is investigating all of the Michael Cohen leads into the Trump organization. They've got the Trump chief financial officer, the guy that knows where the bodies are buried. They got him. He has immunity. Okay. David Pecker from the Inquirer, yes, his name is Pecker. He's working there. He's working with the government. I'm not sure if it's Mueller. I don't think it's Mueller. He's working with, I believe, also the Southern District, because it's campaign finance violations. They got recordings of Trump saying take care of it. Think about this. How crazy is this? The National Enquirer chose not to take they didn't want the Trump campaign to pay them back. They said that would be that would make our buying of the story an in-kind campaign contribution, so don't pay us back. Wait a second. You're telling me that the owners of the National Enquirer know more about campaign finance violations than the people who are in the White House right now? Think about that for a second. Michael Cohen working with the Southern District of New York. Trump Organization. The tax evasion schemes. Cohen knows a lot. Manafort working with Mueller. Manafort doesn't want to die in prison. He probably will, but he's giving it his best shot to not get the maximum. You can't tell me there's nothing here. And in any real world scenario, if Trump was one of your neighbors, that whole family would be in prison. But because we have, a quarter of the country is crazy Trump conservatives who gave this asshole power, and for the first 2 years of his term, he had full control of the government. We have judges he's placed, both on the Supreme Court and all over the circuits. It's going to be very hard. It's going to be very hard to throw this guy in jail. Which is why Robert Mueller is so focused on this investigation, picking over every rock, every pebble. Because there'd be no point. There'd be no point in having an investigation that ends with Robert Mueller standing in front on a press conference and saying, yeah, so, it was all good. I know we indicted all those Russians, but, it's fine. That's not going to be a thing. And now that we have the gavels in the House, if this investigation finishes up over the next 2 years, the American public's going to see it. Whether Trump wants them to or not. And word earlier this week was, I believe I heard this on Monday, that a Don Jr. indictment was imminent. Imminent. I think Roger Stone amended his statement to the House or the Senate Judiciary Committee. I mean, I forgot which senator said it or which representative said it, but Roger Stone keeps amending his statement. He's got more amendments than the Constitution. This fucking guy. Get thicker glasses so you can look more like a fucking weirdo, Roger Stone. Indictments I want to see. Listen, I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite 100% sure if you need to indict Trump to ruin him. I know he doesn't care about anybody, but he kind of has this thing with Don Jr. and Ivanka. It's Ivanka, right? That's the daughter? Yeah, Melania's the wife. Melania's the wife. Ivanka's the one he wants to have sexual intercourse with. Right, okay. Just keep... I get my Trumps mixed up. So he's got a thing. Oh, anyone would have taken that meeting. Don Jr.'s a good kid. No, he's not. Let's just stop pretending that Donald Trump Jr. is a nice guy, is a good person. Let's call him for what he is. He's a thief. He's somebody that goes on safari and kills animals for no reason. He's a fake tough guy. He's an internet bully. And he's a guy that obviously has to be sick in the head, because anyone aspiring to be Donald Trump has to be a moron. Not once has Donald Trump Jr. had his own original thought. Not once has Donald Trump Jr. said, this would be good for Donald Trump Jr. Not once has he thought that. His whole life is kissing the ring of the king. That's his entire life. Don't tell me he took that meeting on his own. You can indict him like he took that meeting on his own. If you can't find the secret hallway in Trump Tower that goes from that room to, because you know there's secret passages and stuff. They're sneaking Russians in and out of the building. Again, these are things that have been, reported. If you follow people like Natasha Bertrand on Twitter, if you've been following, all of the reporting, Seth Abramson, 20 Committee, John Schindler, if you've been following tweets from Rick Wilson, stuff like that, you understand. If you've been following Luis Mensch, Spicy Files, Eric Garland, you know that all of this was coming. You know that this was all going to come to a head. Don Jr., you know it was going to be Roger Stone, Paul Manafort, Don Jr. Manafort's already working with the feds after pleading guilty. Roger Stone, I believe that they want to find definitive Roger Stone WikiLeaks, contact. Because then they can just throw him in jail for perjury. Also, I believe that they want Julian Assange. And not only that, I believe that America should be able to get Julian Assange. Whatever country Julian Assange is in right now, he should be extradited to America to stand trial for conspiring against the United States to sow division in our electoral system. Because don't get it twisted for 1 second. This is not your 2005 WikiLeaks. This is not your 2010 WikiLeaks. This WikiLeaks is an arm of the Russian propaganda machine. And the only thing that WikiLeaks is good for is improving the infrastructure of Russia while simultaneously taking down other countries, ruining elections, ruining powerful people, progressive people that care about the earth and not the nationalism that Trump boasts about. They're not free journalism. They might have been. I'm not saying that they weren't that 10 years ago. This is not that. Putin gets to everybody. And just because Julian Assange isn't Russian doesn't mean that Julian Assange giving emails or giving a heads up on emails to Stone, who then tips Trump, don't tell me that that's not collusion. Doesn't matter that he's not born in Russia. And, he raped that chick. Let's not forget that. Julian Assange is not a good person. And he's not somebody that deserves asylum. I'm not dying on the Edward Snowden hill. You know what I'm saying? That's a longer, drawn-out story. Julian Assange is an asshole, Julian Assange is a criminal, and Julian Assange needs to be brought to justice. Edward Snowden can stay hidden. Because if Edward Snowden was free, you know he'd go right to Williamsburg and start brewing his own IPA. I mean, he just looks like that kind of guy. Oh, God. Alright. Do you think we threaded enough today? I think we did. So basically, long story short, Jeff Sessions being fired is another notch in the obstruction of justice column. Obstruction of justice column. Which has a long list of notches happening. Alright. We will tell you a little bit about Patreon, and then we're going to come back after this. Hey, yo! Jay Porks here, recording my own commercials as per usual. But I am here to tell you about going to patreon.com/JPorks, and you have the opportunity to help support Least Coast Radio by becoming a Least Coast Radio head. How do you do that, you say? Well, there are 3 different tiers to choose from, where you can find yourself bonus content, bonus features from the J Porks podcast, from Dies in Your House, from all things Least Coast Radio. Now, what are those features? Well, they're bonus shows. They're getting shows early. They're getting exclusive artwork mailed to the address of your choosing monthly. You can interact with all the hosts here on Least Coast Radio. You can get shout-outs on the podcast. Behind the scenes stuff. That's on Dies in Your House and the J Porks podcast. You get them both here on Least Coast Radio. Dies in Your House is usually the primer at the end of the week. The J Porks podcast is the long show. What we do at the beginning of the week to get you going, to take in everything that happened. But I need some help. And how you can help Least Coast Radio is by following us on Twitter at Least Coast Radio, going to patreon.com/JPorks, becoming a Patreon, becoming a Least Coast Radio head. And, you know, if you don't want to do any of those things, you can smash that subscribe button on iTunes or YouTube. And, you know, you can, it wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt to share the podcast with your friends. So keep it locked to Least Coast Radio for the least heard voices. We're here fighting fascism, saving democracy, but we're also going to have a little fun. Keep it locked. And we are back. Okay. My voice is going to be a little lower for this end of the podcast here, for this fun part and this end, because my adorable cat, Charlie, has just walked into my room and nuzzled himself right behind me. So I don't want to, if I scream too loud, and I start moving my arms around and getting all animated, he'll get up and I'll be sad that my cat left my room. So, I'm glad that I'm finished with the politics portion of my podcast. You thought I was lying. You thought I was lying, but I am not Mufasa. You thought I was lying when I said that we were going to have a little fun on the podcast. And by a little fun, I mean talk about things that aren't politics. For at least, you know, a couple of minutes during each podcast. So, you guys were nice enough to stick through the first hour and 18 minutes of this. So, we're going to get into it. But here's the thing. Anybody that knows me knows that when I talk about things like music, it doesn't stay fun for long. I'm a very frustrated person. Background on me. I work for a band called the Meat Puppets. You might know them from their, 15 albums, or you know, them being around since 1981, or you might know them from the Nirvana Unplugged. If you've ever watched the Nirvana Unplugged, that's where MTV made them famous. So I work for them. I do their social media from time to time, website stuff, web gopher basically. Also, I run a website called concertconfessions.com. That's where you get all your live music, news, and reviews for the fans, by the fans. So, music is a big part of my life. It always has been. Ever since I was a kid, wanted to be a radio DJ. Then I found out that you don't pick the songs. So then I had no interest in doing that. But I've always liked going to shows, like listening to music, but I find myself getting more angry with music from time to time when I read things from music news websites. That's why Concert Confessions is different. That's why Concert Confessions doesn't do tour dates and stuff and hot takes, because we're not looking for clicks. We're just looking for content from the fans, for the fans, by the fans. Now, we don't not look for clicks because we don't get clicks. That'd be silly. But anyhow, so last week, I'm down in New Jersey, hanging with my girlfriend, my babes, and we're in Denny's, because I don't even care. I'll admit it right now. Freaking love Denny's, okay? That whole Denny's is the place you go when all of the restaurants you want to go to is closed. Screw that. Denny's, for like $7, you can get the most awesome meal in the world. So let's just stop with the Denny's hate for a second. So we're at Denny's. My girlfriend is a very large fan of Third Eye Blind. She is a Third Eye Blind head. Loves Third Eye Blind. The best, like, I've been to so many Third Eye Blind shows. And listen, you're hearing that and you're saying, Jay, your girlfriend's cool. You're right. My girlfriend could like some crappy freaking music. Her favorite band is Third Eye Blind, who have legitimately like 10 hit songs. So, you know, good band. I lucked out. I'm happy. Holding on to this one. So she pointed me. She's in some group on Facebook. And she said, on a list of the top alternative bands of all time, where would you put Third Eye Blind? And I said, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how high they would be. She says, well, Billboard has a list of the top alternative bands of all time. I said, where's Third Eye Blind? 89. There are 88 alternative bands that Billboard feels are better than Third Eye Blind. So, going off this, I said, no. What is the list? Show me the list. We need to get this list up. So we went through this list. And this is the most egregious, disgusting list I have ever seen in life. First of all, alternative. Let's talk about alternative rock for a second. Alternative music is not a genre. Alternative is not a sound. Alternative means that this is something that's not mainstream. Now, after 1991, when Nirvana knocked Michael Jackson off #1, alternative was over, because the rock that you referred to as alternative had hit the charts, hence making it popular, hence making it mainstream, hence voiding the alternative term. I'm not talking about indie rock, unsigned. I'm not talking about college rock. That's not what this is. Alternative rock, or alternative music in general, is a music that you don't have a genre for it yet. And meanwhile, I thought Nirvana was a grunge band. You know what I'm saying? They're on the list. And not where you think they are. Oh, not where you think they are. So let's start with this. Number one, I'm not going through all 100 of them, because I will kill myself before I go through this entire list. Godsmack is number 100. I got no beef with Godsmack. But in what world is Godsmack an alternative rock band? They're a hard rock band. They're a straight up hard rock band. They play hard rock. Maybe it's not metal, but they play hard, heavy rock and roll. There's nothing alternative about Godsmack. I know exactly what chart they're gonna be in. 99 is of Monsters of Men. Okay, they're weird. If you want to call them alternative, that's fine. I think they're a little too new to be on a list of the top 100 Billboard alternative acts of all time. 98 is Social Distortion. So, number 100 is a hard rock band. Number 98 is a punk rock band. And this is an alternative list. So right there. And Sugar Ray is 97. Queens of the Stone Age is 96. If Queens of the Stone Age is considered an alternative rock band, they need to be in the top 20. Full stop. Arctic Monkeys, 93. Arctic Monkeys are legitimately alternative. 93? They were the hottest act in the world for like the last 2 or 3 years. I know not this year. I know Portugal the Man took their spot this year. But Portugal the Man's 90 on this list. And they got like 9 albums out. Elvis Costello is 94. Elvis Costello. First of all, not alternative. But, you know, if you want to put new wave, pre-punk, post-punk, if you want to put Elvis Costello's weird use of ska drums and stuff, if you want to make that alternative, fine. But there is no way that there are 93 acts that are labeled alternative that are better than Elvis Costello. There is no chance that that's a thing. And him being 1 spot ahead of Vance fucking Joy is a problem with me. Third Eye Blind 89, right behind the Replacements, which are a punk rock band. Fall Out Boy. AFI. This is 87, 86. I don't know about alternative. 85, Soul Asylum. 85. Runaway Train is top 10 alternative songs all time. All time. And the band can't crack the top 80. And they've got soundtrack songs too. They got, oh man, Dave Pirner scored Chasing Amy. They got so many songs. 84 is Alice in Chains. Again. Again. You're telling me there are 83 acts better than Alice? First of all, there aren't 83 acts in the world better than Alice in Chains. There aren't 20 acts better in the world than Alice in Chains. Top 20 rock band of all time. 84. And, I mean, alright, I'll say they're alternative. If you want to, like, you know, because you're not sure if they're metal or if they're grunge, yeah, okay, fine. Fine. Cool. But no way 84. And, you know, 1 slot behind Better Than Ezra. I like Better Than Ezra. GTFO with that. 78 is no doubt. 78 is a better alternative rock band than Alice in Chains. Die. Die right now. And they're not all, I mean, alright, that first album might have been alternative. Cake is 76. Again, I like Cake. Not an alternative rock band. And here is the act that you get to, and you say, holy shit, this list is on crack. At 75, Jane's Addiction. If you looked up alternative rock in the dictionary, the first band that you would get is Jane's Addiction. They are legitimately the definition of alternative rock band. 75. Right behind My Chemical Romance. I didn't know this was an emo list. And the B-52s, which I love the B-52s. And they probably are alternative. But there's no way they're in front of Jane's Addiction, Alice in Chains, Third Eye Blind. And I'm not sticking up for Third Eye Blind because that's my girlfriend. Third Eye Blind, all of their songs are different. Like, Semi-Charmed is not Jumper, is not How's It Gonna Be, is not Graduate. Like, they're all individually sounding songs. Continuing on. There's another block of bands here, like, I mean, Korn is alternative, but they're also a hard rock band. And they're at 69. Death Cab for Cutie, are they alternative? They're not just a straight up band. Collective Soul, okay, they came at a time where that, that video, Heaven Let Your Light Shine Down or whatever it is. The video where the guy almost kills himself, but he doesn't. But when I was a kid, I thought he killed himself. And I really wish I would have not rewatched the video because I thought it was perfect until the bird saved him. Then the whole thing is bullcrap. 65 is Limp Bizkit. I'm going to say that again for you. 65 is Limp Bizkit. You could move them down 4 slots so we can have a Did It All for the Nookie jokes. They're a rap rock band, just like Korn. They should not be on this list. 63 is the Dave Matthews Band. Now that got me scared. When I saw the Dave Matthews Band on this list at 63, I said, holy shit, Fish is number 1. Because if Dave Matthews is on this list, Fish has to be on this list. Spoiler, they're not. 62 is Alanis Morissette. I mean, I don't know. Is Jewel alternative too? What is alternative about Alanis Morissette? She's a singer-songwriter with rock music. What is alternative about that? Jagged Little Pill was top of the charts, which means it was not alternative. Garbage is 61. Again, rock band. The Lumineers are 60. Screw that. Susie and the Banshees, 59. They're like a punk rock band. But okay, if they want to make this list, that's fine. White Stripes, 57. That's alternative. Cranberries at 56. 55? Soundgarden. What is even life when Soundgarden can't crack the top 20? When again, that's another top 20 band of all time. I'm sorry, all these people, listen, I know you might not like to hear young people like me, the young kids, talking about the greatest bands in the world being Soundgarden and Alice in Chains. Well, guess what, guys? Guess what? The times have come and gone. The Rolling Stones, the Beatles, that shit is over. Alright, we're done with that. Zeppelin has been replaced by the better Greta Van Fleet. We don't need Zeppelin, I don't need to go back and listen to classic rock anymore from the 70s. Meanwhile, where's Queen? Is Queen not an alternative rock band? What was that? What genre of rock would Queen be in? With the operatic sections. Tell me. Oh, okay. I did see Bohemian Rhapsody when it came out. That was the first showing. I'll save that for next week. I'll give you my little review. I'll let you see it. I have some strong thoughts on the movie. Soundgarden 55, that's complete BS. Especially since they're behind 54, the Silver Sun Pickups. Again, good band. Probably an alternative band. Too high up on this list. Disturbed, System of a Down, clock in at 53 and 52. These I would consider just being regular hard rock bands that get played on the radio. Regular radio. And here's what I don't get. The 50 is Breaking Benjamin. 49 is Shinedown. This list deteriorates. It gets worse. Three Doors Down, Goo Goo Dolls, and this is egregious right here. We have 44 and 43 are Creed and Nickelback. No, 45 and 44 are Creed and Nickelback. Creed and Nickelback. Creed and Nickelback. Alternative. In the top 50. Those are two bands that are ahead of Third Eye Blind, Alice in Chains, The White Stripes, Queens of the Stone Age, Jane's Addiction, and Soundgarden. Take that in for a second. Oh, hey, bud. See, I got too excited. Now my cat's moving. I'm sorry, Charlie. Little mascot here for East Coast Radio. Everclear is 43. I love Everclear. They're not better than the bands I just named that shouldn't be. So everything before Nickelback and Creed. I mean, you got bands like, you have Soundgarden, The Cranberries, The White Stripes, Garbage, Alanis Morissette, Foster the People. You have Jane's Addiction, Cake, No Doubt, Better Than Ezra, Alice in Chains, Soul Asylum. All of these bands are not as good of alternative rock bands as Creed and Nickelback. Your list is invalid. '41 Audio Slave. What is even Audio Slave's in front of Soundgarden? There's no Audio Slave without Soundgarden. And where's Rage Against the Machine? Where is Rage Against the Machine? I don't remember every slot on this list, but I'm going to have a new aneurysm. I remember the top. I'm going to have a new aneurysm if I don't see Rage Against the Machine on this list. I'm just telling you that right now. Jimmy Eat World is 40. 39 is 21 Pilots. Even if they're that, they're not 39. Puddle of Mud is 38. Puddle of Mud of the One Good Song. 37 is Oasis. Another top 20 rock band of all time. Can't crack. It belongs in the top 15 at least of alt rock bands. 37, right behind Kings of Leon at 36. You know, they had that song Sex is on Fire. Well, this list, its pants are on fire, because it's a liar. Bars. Papa Roach at 35. I might as well go kill myself right now. I mean, Papa Roach, Chevelle, 30 Seconds to Mars, The Killers. This is 35 to 30. My cat's moving. He got mad at me. I got too excited. I'm sorry, Chuck. I didn't mean it. You want to get under the blanket? Okay. I'm sorry, bud. Here, get under the blanket. Oh, he's on top of the blanket? Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm not going to cut and, you know, convince my cat to sit. He'll sit with me on the podcast. Porks and Charles. Beck is number 31. Beck with the country rap. Beck of the I'm gonna put out an album on sheet music and you could play it yourself. It's literally right next to Jane's Addiction in the alternative dictionary. In terms of being weird and alternative and not what is actually regular. 31. 30 is Seether. Where's my dad? Because my dad loves Seether. I love Seether. They're not number 30 on alternative rock. They are a regular rock band. How many regular straight up rock bands can be on this list? 9 Inch Nails is 29. They should be higher, but at least they're an alternative band. That's that industrial sound where they make the music sound like machines working in a hollow factory, like rusted metal. Like it sounds like, you know where Eminem worked in 8 Mile, the Detroit Free Press? Not the Detroit Free Press, that's that's the newspaper. You know, where they would working at the plant or something, whatever. The machine, they would press things. Anyway, that's the sound of a 9 Inch Nails record. It's alternative. Morrissey is 28, Depeche Mode is 27. Those two should be on the same list, just not this one. 311 is 26. 311's a great band. And they're a great alternative band. But there's no way that they are in front of, again, Third Eye Blind, Alice in Chains, Jane's Addiction. There's Soundgarden. And Audio Slave. And Beck. There's just no way. 25 is Coldplay. This is where I start to hurt myself. 24 is Rise Against. 23 is the Black Keys. 22 is Live. Surprised Live is that high up. I like them. And they might actually belong on the list. I'm just surprised they got up there. Number 21 is Nirvana. I just put my phone down. I'm backing away from the microphone for a second and I'm taking deep breaths. I don't want to breathe heavy on the microphone. But my therapist told me to take deep breaths when I feel like I'm going to break things. So that's what I'm going to do. You telling me there are 20 alternative bands better than the greatest band in the history of rock and roll? I'll say that again. Better than the greatest band in the history of rock and roll? Greatest ever. 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 That's not something that polling. That's not something that I'm taking an educated guess on. That's not something that I heard from pundits. That is fact. That is fact. There is no band that has had more of an impact on music than Nirvana had. I know the Beatles came over from England and took over America, but they didn't knock Michael Jackson off the top of the charts. They didn't do that. They didn't take an entire genre of music and plunge it into the mainstream. They didn't take an entire section of the country and make it relevant. You think there would be an Amazon headquarters in Seattle if it wasn't for Nirvana? Are you joking? You think Nintendo would really care that much about Seattle if it wasn't for Nirvana? 20? Not even 21? Right behind 3 Days Grace? Billboard, go fuck yourself. Do me a favor. 3 Days Grace. Next is Stained. That's another band better than Nirvana. Not only better than Nirvana, but a better alternative rock band than Nirvana. Yeah, right. The next is, Stone Temple Pilots at 18. I love the Stone Temple Pilots. I love all 3 of their lead singers, and I promise that I will go see them with their 4th lead singer when their current lead singer kills himself. But at the same time, there is no way they're better than Nirvana. There's no way they should be this high on this list. You can cut this list to 20. The Cure. They're weird. Okay. 17? No. Imagine Dragons. The band that has 3 lyrics per song. Forget that. Cage the Elephant's in 15. I love Cage the Elephant. I think they're weird, and I think they're alternative. They're not 15. And you know who shouldn't be 14 because they're not alternative? Blink 180 fucking 2. Okay? There needs to be a pop punk list, and Blink 182 should be on the list that Green Day is number 1 on. That's the list they should be on. They shouldn't be on this list. This is not a punk list. This is not a 90s punk revival list. Muse is 13. I'm just very happy that Muse is that far ahead of Coldplay. The Smashing Pumpkins are 12. I got all the respect in the world for Billy Corgan. I really do. Besides his, political beliefs. But as a musician, love Billy Corgan. Love his band. Love the tunes. There's no way. There's no way that they belong that high on this list. 11 is Bush. Again, I like Bush. How are they in front of the Smashing Pumpkins and the Stone Temple Pilots and fucking Nirvana? 10. The Offspring. Another band I really like. I really like them. They're not an alternative rock band. They're that 90s punk revival stuff. They should be on the list that Green Day is at the top of. Number 9 is Weezer. I love Weezer. And they kind of are alternative. And I mean, could be worse bands that high. They're not better than Nirvana. They're not better than Jane's Addiction. They're not better than Soundgarden. Where are the Pixies on this list? Incubus is number 8. Incubus. Number 7 is Pearl Jam. True story. Episode 7 of the J Porks podcast. Episode 7. This is episode 249. Episode 7 of the J Porks podcast is called Pearl Slam. And that's where I talk about how much I hate Pearl Jam. I really, really, really dislike Pearl Jam and their fake their fake takeover of the grunge scene, and how they capitalized on a bunch of people who getting hooked on heroin, and the band called in a ringer from Southern California, a surfer, and they, air quotes, took over the world. It's completely forced. It's completely big arena. It's the opposite of what grunge is and was meant to be. And listen, I'm not saying like they're bad people. All the charities or whatever they support, good for them. That's great. But in terms of vocals, Eddie Vedder is the worst sound I've ever heard in my life, with the exception of, Donald Trump has been elected. The worst sounds I've ever heard in my life are the sounds that come out of Eddie Vedder's throat. Sounds like there is a dead muskrat that he's trying to cough out. A cat is dying in there, Eddie. He wants to get out. Let him out. Let him go into the wild. And honestly, like, with this list, I expected Nirvana to be 1 and Pearl Jam to be 2, because people love Pearl Jam because, They need to hold on to something they have. Oh, Nirvana's gone. I need to hook my wagon onto Pearl Jam. Just like how Phish has fans because, you know, a good band. So, like, you know, people try to hold on to that. It's like people go to Phish, and Phish is like, you know, the Grateful Dead for, you know, millennials and stuff. So REM is number 6. REM is legitimately an alternative rock band. REM belongs in this list, and REM belongs this high on the list. U2 is number 5. Didn't know they were alternative. And no way do they belong this high on this list. They're not alternative. Number 4 is Linkin Park. Again, Linkin Park should top whatever rap rock list you have. The rap rock list that's going to include Limp Bizkit and Korn and Papa Roach. Number 3 is Green Day. Green Day is the 90s punk revival that they should be number 1 on a list that has Blink-182 and The Offspring and Fall Out Boy and all that stuff, and American Hi-Fi, whatever. That's the list they should be on. They should not be topping an alternative list. They were alternative rock in 1992. That's the thing about alternative. It's not a permanent thing. You're alternative until you're mainstream. Once you're mainstream, you are no longer alternative. Once you are a pop act, you are not. Once you are popular, once you have the ability to get played on Z100, and that's not Green Day's fault, but once you have the ability to write songs to get played on Z100, you are no longer an alternative band. Number 2, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They are a legitimate alternative rock band. They are weird. They have weird sounds. They are original. They are mid-80s. They came out in like 87. They're alternative. And they definitely belong in the top 10. Remember what alternative means. Alternative means you are not mainstream. Alternative means you are not necessarily popular when you're putting out these songs. If the songs get popular later, that doesn't take away your alternativeness. You know what I'm saying? Like Runaway Train. Like, it's a popular song, but it's still alternative. The number 1 band is the Foo Fighters. The goddamn Foo Fighters. The Foo Fighters were mainstream since the first chord they ever played. The Foo Fighters are the definition of radio-friendly unit shifters. The Foo Fighters are the antithesis of everything Kurt Cobain ever wanted in life. They are safe. They are radio-friendly. They move units. They play the O2 arena. They play arenas. They go on the late shows without having to worry about, are they going to curse? They're not dangerous. They don't take any chances with their music. They get played on every rock station. They get played on every pop station. They get played on every top 50 station or top 20 station. All of their records are in the top 10 in Billboard all the time. They are not alternative. There is nothing alternative about them. There is not one strand from one chord, one note from one song, from any Foo Fighters record that has ever been alternative. They have from day one inspired to be a band number 1 on the pop charts. From day one, Dave Grohl told us he was gonna stick around. That's what Dave Grohl told us. after his best friend ate the barrel of a shotgun, his first hit was I'll stick around, I'll stick around. Oh, you're full of shit, man. You should be fucking ashamed of yourself. And listen, I'm not saying that Dave Grohl can't start a band, okay? But the chorus, I don't owe you anything. I don't owe you anything. Yes, you do. You owe your entire career and life to Kurt Cobain. And you got some balls writing that song as your first release. And that went to #1. And all of their albums have reached the top 5. They were mainstream from day one. Everybody knew who Dave Grohl was. They were never alternative. They never took one chance with their music. Never took one chance. Never went out on one limb. Not once. You know what? There was once. When Dave Grohl fell and broke his leg, and then he got his leg casted during the show, he was like on one limb there because one of his limbs was broken. It was literal. It wasn't figurative like musically. Fucking joking me? The Foo Fighters? They're #1? What is this, the Electoral College? It took me reading this list a couple of times to realize that it's Billboard. So they're doing it based on record sales and chart listings. If that's the case, then Madonna's the best act ever. Do you think Madonna is the best musician of all time? Do you think that? Because she sold the most records. Dave Grohl, and listen, he's never, not one bone in his body has ever been alternative. Not once. There is not one Foo Fighters note on one Foo Fighters song that takes any chances musically. That says, oh, we might lose some fans with this. Some of our fans might not like this. Never happened. Not once. Not once. Next time it happens, we'll be the first. Wow. Wow. And yeah, that's my idea of fun. It's like, it's a two-parter. They're not an alternative band. And also, when Dave Grohl fronts a rock band and plays his mediocre guitar and sings his mediocre songs with his mediocre rock scream, the world loses a great drummer at that point. Dave Grohl's probably the best drummer of my generation. I don't know a drummer that hits harder, that is better than Dave Grohl. On everything he's ever drummed on, he is the best. I saw them Crooked Vultures live. Some of the loudest drum sounds I've ever heard in my life. Age record, Songs for the Deaf, where he drums on. Man, some masterful work there. But he's over there fronting a band, playing his mediocre songs with his mediocre voice and his mediocre guitar. He's not even a good guitar player. He's not even a good vocalist. He's not even a good songwriter. And listen, and when politics took over this podcast, I would rage against, before that, I hate Pearl Jam, I hate the Foo Fighters. But when politics took over, I decided to stop hating the Foo Fighters because, not stop hating them, but stop actively vocalizing my hate for them, because there's only so many things you can be mad at in life. But I'm back. I can't I can't anymore. The fucking Foo Fighters, man. Number one. Are you kidding me? See, my microphone, the blue Snowball microphone, it's like round. And so it's round and it's got like a stick. So I want to, like, I'm looking at it and I want to choke it like Homer chokes Bart. But it's not a person, so I can't. Oh, boy. Okay. So if you want more fun, just hit us up on Twitter at Least Coast Radio. And at JPorks on Twitter. And if you got any music, if you got any lists of top bands or something you want me to go through, please send those over. One segment of podcast every week on the JPorks podcast. We are going to have a little fun, if there is fun to be had. If there's a list available. So if nothing comes to my desk before next week we'll talk about Bohemian Rhapsody. The movie, not the song. Well, we could talk about the song too, but I mean, we are going to talk. We'll talk about both. Okay. Hope you all like that fun. Now, I'm getting up on out of here to try a new Chinese buffet with my parents. But before I do that, let me give you the list of websites you need to go to help keep me in business. I talked about it 40 minutes ago. ConcertConfessions.com. That's where you're going to get all your live music news and reviews for the fans by the fans. And the website is down right now because we were focused on the midterms. We needed everyone to vote. It's not because I didn't have the money and it just happened to be on a Tuesday. No, but seriously, it'll be up soon. I will fix it again. I will pay for it. Once I get $14. Go to patreon.com/JPorks. Find out how to become a Least Coast Radiohead. And check out leastcoastradio.weebly.com. Tell me how you like that. I'm thinking about switching that, making that my main website page. It's very easy to build, and I'm mad at GoDaddy right now. And what else we got? Every week, hey, when we talk about music like we just did, the headlines be powered by Antiquiet. Antiquiet.com. Your source for quality. Till next week, folks. Wacky Weed and Warren Zevon. Resist. Remove. And keep an eye on that recreational. And fight for it. Late. JPorks Podcast. Exclusively on Least Coast.
If you don't know what Staten Island is, it's like New York's abortion that lived.
Representing Staten Island.
Staten Island wasn't no joke.